I think we can see through day-to-day interactions that teens can oftentimes be more enthusiastic or more energetic about particular things like social activities or other emotional occurrences in their life. In research, we can also see that teens can be more sensitive as well. I think we can see that in day-to-day life too. They're more apt to look at a short-term consequence or reward as being more meaningful than the long-term consequences. The reason that may be important with relation to suicidality is again, the short-term pros or cons of the situation may loom larger in the teenager's mind because of the way their brain is working during that period of development than they would for an adult.
You're separating from your family, but you don't have all that life experience to help you. So teenagers are more emotional. They're more impulsive, maybe do something on a whim without thinking it through. And they're more driven to please their peers, who may also be risk-taking.
The tendency, which many of us may remember from those times in our own lives, of thinking, well, this one thing is ruining my life. You'll hear a teenager say that about events a lot more often than you will people at other ages. I mean, I think we can agree across the board that teens tend to have reactions to life events that are different than they would be at another stage of life. And what we're beginning to understand is that that relates to concrete aspects of brain development, that the teen brain is simply different.
We all hope our teenagers can get through that era and mature and settle down with no harm done, but it is a time of car accidents, substance use, romances that fail, all types of stressors that put them at risk for feeling suicidal.
I started as a volunteer here in 2007, and now I'm the executive director. And I really like how I'm still working with the same community and the same stuff, but I'm just kind of using a different skill set. I am very lucky to be in a really good spot right now, and I pretty much have been for the last 12 years, probably. I'm 28 now. And I feel like my life has just been filled with kind of cool opportunity after cool opportunity to overcome the fact that for a while when I was a teenager, I didn't think my life was worth living. I always thought this stage of my life would be something worth dreading. The time when you have like the full-time job and responsibilities and the stress and pressures that come from like really committing to something. I thought that that was just like not for me, you know? But now that I'm here, I feel like I came to it naturally, and I feel really lucky to have had the challenges that I have and also to have survived them, because that just got me ready to take on quote unquote adult life. Going through high school, I was a kid in the, exceptional learning program and sort of had opportunities to take AP and IB classes, and I always did really well in them. I considered myself very smart. Around my junior year, I felt the pressures of being sort of effortlessly good at everything starting to fade away when the realities of kind of rigorous higher end school started to catch up with me. The kids who were doing their homework were starting to get ahead of me. I felt like I was living a bit of a lie, if that makes sense. Like, I'm supposed to be good at everything, and now I'm having to try hard, and it's no longer effortless, and I can no longer laugh off when things are difficult. And instead of growing up, I wanted to give up. I went into the attempt very impulsively. I remember sort of psyching myself up to do it based on this whole, you're gonna do this, you said you were gonna do this to yourself, don't back out, don't give up. You've got to prove it to yourself that you're capable of this. I basically bullied myself into killing myself. That moment of jumping was just pure terror. Just, this is it. And there's no going back. And then when I woke up in the hospital 4 hours later, it was clear that I was going to live. I was just so grateful. Just kind of awestruck by how alive I was. My life has been good. I have had challenges since. I have felt really bad since. I think that I've gone through some bouts of what could be called minor depression since, but I've never wanted to kill myself again because it was such a relief to be alive after knowing that I very easily could have been dead. Nothing could go wrong in comparison to that. Everything is overcomable in comparison to that.
More recently, research that looks at the systems of the brain that underlie emotion, including feelings of being rewarded or reinforced by certain things, the limbic areas of the brain, has shown that teen years are pretty unique as far as the development of those systems. That's only part of the story, though.
The prefrontal cortex, which gives you, the judgment, control over things, is evolving, and so you may have these emotions come up, but not all the controls that you'd like to have. Most of the kids that die by suicide are struggling with socially, academically, and we always talk about that. That's the majority of it. There's a small group, maybe 15%, that are real high achievers. We think there's something about their psychology. They're perfectionists. They can't tolerate any failure. They don't have the capacity to have a plan B and a plan C. They may be really nice kids, but they're very hard on themselves. And they may be vulnerable to something that we would look at and say, well, you didn't get into that school, but you got in this other one, your life's going great. But for them, they beat themselves up.
I think that most people think that suicide attempts are preceded by like a lifetime of depression and anguish and sort of irreconcilable sorrow. That wasn't me. That's why this question of teenage impulsiveness, I think, is a really powerful one to me, because that's what you do when you're a teenager. You make bad decisions. Mine was just really bad. My attempt was sort of kicked off by a couple failures, little ones, but they were a big deal to me at the time. I had a girlfriend who I think broke up with me. We weren't necessarily that compatible, but I didn't like being broken up with, That made me feel like imperfect. And then I borrowed my mom's car, and I hate driving because I'm like the bike guy. And on the way back, I crashed the car on the freeway and totaled it. And I didn't have a great idea of how car insurance worked, so I thought we'd just have to pay out of pocket the amount that the car was worth. And I was like, oh man, I just cost my parents all this money. I don't have that money. I feel like, like a jerk and wasteful. I don't want to see my parents suffer. And literally the next day at 1 a.m, I made a plan to jump off a building. Looking back, I can't imagine why those factors were enough to make me do that, but they were at the time. It's incomprehensible to me. I've got enough distance from it now that I just say, really? That was enough? But you feel things when you're a teenager in ways that are indescribable and just so final I think that it was rooted in something that was deeper and did take longer to manifest itself, which was an unwillingness to grow up, for lack of a better word. Unwillingness to face the kind of cause and effect challenges that life throws at you in the course of a normal life. If I had thought about it rationally, it would have been easy to say, yeah, it will hurt my parents more if I kill myself than if I crash their car and deal with the repercussions of that. I learned in retrospect that it was the worst thing I could have done to my family. At the time, I was not thinking about them. I was thinking about me. I was being a selfish 16-year-old. And I am very lucky that I grew out of my suicide attempt, with a fully functioning body and mind. But I'm equally lucky that I came out of it with a good relationship with my mom, a good relationship with my stepdad, my dad, and my sister, and my friends. Because they had to forgive me for insulting everything they cared about. My parents loved me so much from the time I was born till the time I was 16. And I just said, hey, sorry, no, I'm gonna die now. And they did nothing to deserve that. Just raised me right, And so now that I've kind of overcome it and outgrown it and everything, I'm just like really grateful that they were able to forgive me so that I can have a good relationship with them and a full life. And if I hadn't survived, I don't know if my mom would have made it or been the same. And I don't know how she would have recovered, and she's amazing, so I can't fathom that. But the night of, I had a one-night perspective. I didn't have a lifetime perspective. I didn't have a 10-year perspective. And now that I have that, I'm just really grateful.